even if I withdrew a senatorial candidate, this promise was made to the voting public when we were having our campaign with the president. And Senator Jingo Estrada is seated beside me. He knows this. And then nung mag-withdraw ako, sabi ko sa kanya, bakit ka nag-withdraw kasi? Paano mong ipupursu itong sinasabi mong promise na ito? Alam mo ka ako, Jingoy, mag-withdraw ako dahil sa ayokong maging, kasi sa survey, nakikita ko number 2 lang ako, ayokong number 2. So pag nag-withdraw ako, siguradong number 1 si Robin, ikaw naman siguradong papasok ka dahil alam ko number 12 ka lang. Yun ang dahilan kaya ako nag-withdraw eh. But, kahit ako nag-withdraw, Mr. Secretary, talagang gusto kong mapursu ito because we really promised this to the voting public. Nakakahiya naman po kung hindi natin siseryosohin. Alam po ni Senator Jingo yun. Tingnan po ninyo yung malampaya, Mr. Secretary. I am worried. I think...
Just an intervention. I would like to thank Congressman Marcoleta for withdrawing. Otherwise, he would have been number 2. Thank you. Because you withdrew, I became number 2, sir. Thank you.
Salamat po, Madam Chair. I seek your permission that I sit here because I need to establish an eye-to-eye contact with the Secretary. Maybe this will expedite the proceedings.
Yes. The closer, the better. That means the closer you are to him, the closer we are towards his confirmation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. We beg your indulgence, Mr. Secretary. Good morning. These are very important policy issues that we need to articulate because we believe that this will ultimately bring down the cost of electricity in this country, which is the promise of the President when we were campaigning together. And this is this can be witnessed by the Madam Chairman, even Senator Jingo is not here, but even the Senate President was there when we were articulating this promise that resonated well to the public. Yesterday, Mr. Secretary, we have somehow agreed that the PBR is not a globally accepted methodology, and our country is not even a signatory to any treaty to that effect. Therefore, I think you will be agreeable if we work on getting or reverting back to the previous methodology, which is RORB. Are you amenable, Mr. Secretary?
If Congress desires so and makes the revisions, yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Secretary, I think even the Congress intervention is not even needed because under Section 43 of EPIRA, the ERC has the option of resorting to any modality or methodology. So it's only a question of reverting back to the former because this is more realistic. We will be doing away with the plans. Actually, we will be using actual investment, not planned investment, to free our consumers from paying the planned development or investment that is yet to be installed by a utility, which is impractical, which is not realistic, because the Supreme Court already ruled that any expense charged to the consumer by the public utility, which does not relate to the services of benefit accrued or derived by them, is unjustified and equitable. That is a Supreme Court decision. So if you agree that we will work on that, then I'll close that particular issue.
We commit to work with you on this.
That is an undertaking, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, pursuant to the EPIRA, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so maybe we will be expecting, Madam Chair, a particular, maybe circular from the DOE, formally advising the DRC that we are getting back to that and work on the details and set into motion the proper mechanism for us to migrate again or revert back from PBR to RORB. We will expect that, Mr. Secretary.
Accordance with the EPIRA's, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman.
Thank you. And maybe concomitant to that, because under PBR, they're using the WACC, and ERC failed miserably, and I think they forgot and slept on their duties of computing the WACC, and therefore the distribution utilities had a windfall profit from merely 6.8% to about 15%. I think we need also to work on whether or not the transmission fees and distribution fees collected from the consumers should probably be refunded somehow. Can you undertake or commit that we can work on that, Mr. Secretary?
Definitely, we can work on
Thank
that,
you.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, sir. But of course, in doing this, you might earn the ire of some industry players. Are you ready on making some of these people unhappy? More especially the players with whom your good self had some associations. Are you prepared to get the ire or making them unhappy for many times?
We commit to do that, Madam Chair, pursuant to EPIRA.
Thank you. And I assume yesterday, Mr. Secretary, that you agreed with this representation when we discussed the inappropriateness of system loss being collected from our consumers, because it cannot be justified in any manner. Pilferage of electricity, errors in computation or accounting or whatever cannot be the burden to consumers. Can you undertake to work with us? Some part of it should be worked out with Congress, like we would have to knock off that provision in Republic Act 7832, Section 10, where system loss was instituted. I, on my part, Mr. Secretary, will help you because I have a pending bill, so that I would secure your support on that. Of course, we will make again a distribution utility very unhappy, but I assure you, Madam Chair, that we will make our consumers very, very happy. Will you commit on that, Mr. Secretary?
We're committed to work with you and the Congress, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. After all, again, in that case that I articulated to you, the Supreme Court said that rate regulation is an art, reaching a result that will be good for the public utility, Meralco, but best for the public. So in balancing the interest of the consumer and that of the electricity provider, I think there is a more weight on the part of the consumers considering the underlying and overarching objectives of EPIRA, which is to provide affordable, reasonable, fair, and transparent rates of electricity. Are we agreeable on this, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, Madam Chair.
I also assume in yesterday's hearing, Mr. Secretary, that we had an agreement that the ARCOA is supposed to be pursued with more vigor, because this is one way, this is one mechanism of reducing the rates of electricity. This is something that the ERC also is slept for some time. Can you imagine that the EPIRA provides that the ARCOA rules should be there 3 years after the effectivity of the law? You're very sure about that.
Madam Chair.
But it took them 11 years to work on the rules. Kaya hindi natin na-maximize. There is also a provision in the EPIRA, Madam Chair, of aggregation. I am correct.
That's right, Madam Chair.
And the threshold is only 700 kilowatts. The rules on aggregation, Mr. Secretary, were only issued very recently. So it took them 21 years. Medyo mabagal sila talaga. That is why, since yesterday, I've been urging you, or soliciting you, not only to draw the line, but cross that line. Do not be afraid. We will help you. Because you will be working. You're crossing the line not because you want to fight them. You're crossing the line because you want to serve the better interest of our people. You agree with me. You are with me, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. In the ARCOA, Mr. Secretary, merong naging problema. Like, for example, an electric cooperative in Antique, where the Madam Secretary, the Madam Chairman had the residence. Kapag ka po nagkaroon ng ARCOA, necessarily, nagkakaroon po ng contestable market. So yun pong provider, yun pong energy supplier doon, nawawala po yung market niya. One by one, may kumakalas po because of the contestable market. Now, the electric cooperative there is burdened by the stranded cost or excess cost. He has no other alternative because of the fixed agreement. Ang nangyayari, Mr. Secretary, ipapass on niya doon sa market na walang ability to go into the contestable market. Kaya sila po yung nababarden. Ganito po ang marami. Can we work on that to rationalize the PSAs or the PPAs old and new in order to justify the rates of electricity without compromising the viability of the electric cooperatives or the distribution utility? We can do that. And you will undertake to do that, Mr. Secretary.
Certainly, Madam Chair, we will work on that.
Thank you. In connection with that, meron pa kayo ngayon bago, ito yung tinatawag yung DES, Distribution Energy System, which is more or less like the ARCOA. Wala pong provision pa ngayon yon. So, siguro, bago pa ito, i-institute nyo na rin for the purpose, again, of rationalizing. Kasi po yung distribution o yung DES is more attractive to the well-offs kasi pwede siyang maglagay po ng solar panel. Kayang-kaya niyang bayaran. Yun naman pong ordinary individual household, wala naman pong kayang gumawa nun. Kaya dependent siya doon. Siya po yung mababarden because of the DES and the ARCOA. Please see to it that the rules are amended or rationalized to keep everybody or to make everybody happy. We can do that, Mr. Secretary.
Certainly, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we discussed yesterday, Madam Secretary, that meron kayong existing DOE circular issued in 2018. This is in particular relation to the guidelines on power supply agreements or PPAs. Dito po kasi nilagay ninyo under section 7.2 or 7.3, if I'm not mistaken, yung pong DOE and ERC are mere observers. In other words, you are now incapacitated to take actions on anything that will ensure or protect the interests of the consumers. Sana mapalitan natin yon, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Secretary, because this is a very important issue for you to be able to cross the line. It might help you not just to maintain or draw a line between you and ERC. Again, I solicit your attention here. Maybe we can do this and we will help you do this also.
Madam Chair, we can revisit that. Thank you.
Before Congressman Marcoleta proceeds on the next point, on the issue that you raised about the electric rates in our province, for the information of Cong Marcoleta, it's not only this representation who is from Antique, but the good secretary is also from that province. So I am certain that he will do something about bringing down the highest electricity rate in the island of Panay. And I would like to learn more about what the good congressman had mentioned, and we can have a meeting after you are confirmed today on what is the way forward to bring it down, because our poor Kasimanwas, good secretary, are suffering the highest electricity rates in our island. Thank you. I'm sure I have your commitment.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, yesterday also we mentioned the possible assistance of the Philippine Competition Commission to DOE, and maybe we can maximize that because after all, one of the main objectives of EPIRA is to ensure the security of reasonable rates of electricity under a fair and free regime of competition. So I believe you will need the assistance, the technical assistance of the Philippine Competition Commission. Anyway, this is the domain. This is something that they should also contribute to you in order that we can rationalize the electricity rates, which is now becoming uncontrollable in so many areas, as you might already observe. Can we secure your commitment that we can enlist the assistance, the involvement of the Philippine Competition Commission, Mr. Secretary?
Definitely, Madam Chair. It will involve the PCC.
Yesterday also, Mr. Secretary, we considered, or you considered rather, that the WSM was established in the EPIRA because it should be a mechanism, a market mechanism that will guide the direction of the price of electricity, because it will dictate. It will be based on the actual variation of the supply and demand. This is a very important market policy. But unfortunately, as you will observe, Madam Chair, hindi talaga na-achieve yung purpose dahil kung if WSM is operating as efficiently as it has been projected to be, sana ay na-rationalize po yung electric rates, hindi po yung pataas na siya ng pataas. Talagang there is a problem, and you probably need to revisit the guidelines in maintaining the spot market of electricity. One way to visit this, Mr. Secretary, is the existence of I would say independent market operators. The EPIRA provided for an IMO. It's in the law. But initially, there should be a group. It's called AGMO, which in the beginning, it was fulfilled by the Philippine Electricity Market Corporation, or the PEMC. Ultimately, the PEMC has to give it up to a legally constituted independent market operator. The problem today, Mr. Secretary, the IMAP has been questioned. I think again in this area, Madam Secretary, the ERC or the DOE is left on it for so long a time that the personality of the IMAP, it's called IEMOP, is not yet defined. To the extent that it is now collecting market fees also without the approval of the ERC. If PMC is collecting market fees today, and IMAP is also collecting the market fees, so there are two animals collecting market fees, then it contributes to the rates of electricity, kaya po tumataas. This is something that we need to look into also, Mr. Secretary, because this is important. These are all important policies that will benefit our people ultimately, because we need to bring down the rates of electricity, whether we like it or not, because this is the objective of the law. Kapag hindi po natin naibaba, talaga pong nakaka-prostrate na, Madam Secretary. The EPIRA law was enacted in 2001. I'm sorry. Mabuti na lamang wala pa po ako noon, Mr. Secretary. Kasi pumasok po ako sa Congress 2004. EPIRA was enacted in 2001. or 21 years ago. The objectives are very simple. The objectives are very clear. I-maintain po natin yung affordable, fair, reasonable, and competitive price of electricity. Yun po yung batas. 21 years later, nandito pa po tayo, nagtatalo tayo, and now, we ended up trying to elicit undertakings and commitments on policies that the DOE should enunciate and lay down. It's not too late, Mr. Secretary. Maybe in your time, ngayon lang po natin ito magagawa. And I will congratulate you for doing that. You need to succeed, as I have said yesterday. Ito po ang pangako ni President Bongbong Marcos. Kasama po niya akong nangako, nahihiya naman po kami kung hindi natin magagawa. In Congress, I have laid down several bills already. We have 10 bills in Congress, all energy. Palagay ko naman tutulungan nyo kami dito. Naglatag kami ng bills for solar energy, and maybe we can utilize the unused properties of the Philippine, the armed forces of the Philippines para lang po sa mga renewables natin, kagaya po ng gusto nating mangyari. And Madam Chair, no, you're also passionate about renewables because this is the only way we can address also another complex problem that is confronting our environment. There is no other way. The way forward is to go into renewables and free ourselves from fossil fuel, not only because it is dirty energy, Mr. Secretary, but because we should not be dependent too much from the volatility of the market, the international market. Ito lamang ang paraan, and this is the way to go forward. But there are structural problems also why we cannot encourage developers renewable energy. Siguro po yung iba ay hindi ninyo alam. For example, a developer, magpapile po siya ng power project. So, he will apply a service contract with the DOE. Sa DOE pa lamang po, bibigyan po siya ng letter of intent, and then he will require to present for the mapping documents, but it will require months, Mr. Secretary. It discourages the EBOS law that the Senate passed several years ago. The EBOS provides for an online application, but it is still dependent on your ITMS, your IT management services. It requires months. And the long queue is there. Maybe hindi nyo po nakikita pa ito, but it is only a matter of being able to siguro beef up your personnel. Siguro dagdagan yung personnel and maybe mag-train sila sa i-retrain po natin. Try yung long queue will be discouraged. So the developer will not be discouraged from entering into this. And secondly, you have to also consider and to revisit yan pong requirement ng SIS. This is the system impact study required by the NGCP. On the average, Madam Chair, before the NGCP can issue the SIS, pasalamat na, kung matatapos siya in 2 years. How on earth can the poor developer even meet its decommissioning commitment if the NGCP is supposed to be issued in 2 years' time? These are the problems that discourage future developers and project project developers into the energy. These are the fields, these are the issues that you need also to look into, Mr. Secretary. If you can undertake or commit that you look into this as soon as possible, we will be very grateful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, definitely. In this, the instances that you have enumerated, we commit to
And
act.
then we had the problem of Malampaya. Senator Jinggoy suggested this question to me yesterday. He said that do not forget to raise this question tomorrow because this is important. By the way, Mr. Secretary, I need to confide to you that Malampaya, according to accounts, will be depleted by 2024. Tama po.
The service contract will.
Yeah, the service contract. But some say that it will probably go on up till 2027. What is your understanding about critical depletion?
I think you are referring to the fact that it will be depleted to the extent that the gas can no longer be extracted.
Yes, because there is a continuous depletion and you can no longer expect the volume and the pressure that will come in from the gas field. It will also mean technically continuing durations from the supply of the power plants that fed by this natural gas. You are worried, Mr. Secretary.
Of course, Mr. Congressman.
You have reasons to begin to worry because there are 5 plants dependent on natural gas. And these 5 plants, Madam Chair, constitute about 20% of our supply nationally. 30% in the Luzon grid. Am I correct?
That's right, Madam.
So we have all the reasons to worry because anytime this Malampaya gas field will come out without any warning. Do we have any contingency?
That's why we have to act with dispatch on the first we have already acted with dispatch on the approval of the sale, and now we are addressing the extension of the service contract, Madam Chair.
Yes, but I observed that the notice to proceed were delayed by 1 year kasi merong, and then the notice to construct, meron yatang 3 na ang ninombrahan ninyo. But please, I would advise the good secretary, Madam Chair, that if FGen is able to construct an LNG terminal, which is the only alternative because Malampaya, whether you like it or not, will be depleted sooner than later. Sana naman po magkaroon tayo ng policy that FGen, considering that it has the anchor market because of the 4 plants operating using this natural gas, huwag sanang mamonopolize. You know what I mean? Because if there is monopoly, again, the price of electricity will be affected. From the beginning up to the last interpellation or question that I will raise, it will revolve around the price of electricity because this is the promise that we made. Hindi po ako magdi-deviate dyan, Mr. Secretary. Now, Madam Chair, we got so many undertakings and commitment, structural reforms and policies that the good secretary has agreed to do. And in this way, I think he will not only be drawing the line between himself and the other agencies under his own supervision, probably in control. But this will effectively make him cross the line in the name of serving the greater majority of our people. This is, I think, agreeable with us, Sir Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are committed to work with you and the Congress to pursue the objectives of the areas you have underlined.
Okay, so ganito po ang gagawin natin. We need to test your resolve. Tama naman po yun, Sir Secretary, di ba? Alam naman po natin na you were an independent director of Aboitiz. At hindi naman nyo kinakaila yun. And I believe you can be more independent working for our people. You just said that you can make them unhappy, if that must be, because you'll be serving a greater interest. Ngayon po, ang ERC is an appointee who came from Aboitiz. Ang PISAM is now headed by an appointee coming from Aboitiz. You came from Aboitiz somehow or affiliated. In the course of discharging your duties as Secretary of DOE, you will be brushing shoulders with these people whom you are professionally affiliated and connected. You should have to allay the fears of our people, including myself, that you will always be working for the interest of our people, no matter what. Halimbawa, yung Malampaya, Aboitiz might lang naman, might want to influence the timing of the sale of the remaining generating assets of NPC. But you should be there to arbitrate for the good of our people. Because he can influence even the timing, even the floor price of the bidding. Eh, sabi ko nga yung NGCP, the reservation of the grid, baka naman nagkaroon siya ng preference because you and the rest of your professional colleagues came from them. But we will take your word for it, Mr. Secretary. That is the best way to erase the perception, the suspicion, para magtagumpay ka. And we would like you to succeed. Again, if your success is the benefit of our people. Di ba, pare?
Okay na.
Isa na lang, sir. Isa na lang ito. This is now the test of the firm resolve of the Secretary. Pag ito po nagawa ninyo, lahat po ng undertaking na binigay nyo, maniniwala na po kaming lahat. Yesterday, I had the chance of bringing about the corruptions in Beneco. Totoo na po ito. There are 2 audit reports already issued by the National Electrification Authority Administration. An LGU, the smart city of an LGU in Benguet. Hindi ko na muna babanggitin po. Yung interconnectivity niya is dependent on this electric cooperative but they are not paying. Meron pong interloper. Somebody assumed the position even though there is already a general manager who was endorsed, confirmed, and finally elected by DENEA members arbitration board. Hindi ko po maintindihan bakit po yung ating administrator is taking his sweet time to correct the anomaly. There cannot be 2 GMs at a time. Yung isa po kino-cover up niya yung corruption doon. Because he actively campaigned for a defeated presidential candidate. We have pictures to prove that, Mr. Secretary. He should have been removed, forcibly, if necessary. Can I get your undertaking that you remove that interloper and confirm the appointment of a legally and legitimately placed general manager in Beneco? I will give you until Friday, Mr. Secretary, if you can do that. That is a test of your resolve because you are the chairman of the board of NEA, I understand. If the administrator cannot do it today, maybe you can order him that he do this, he does it not later than Friday. Can I get that commitment, Mr. Secretary?
We can commit to do that, Madam Chair, in accordance with the law. Thank you.
Yes, the law already tells you to do that. Corruption was already established by these 2 audits. that interloper, that unauthorized general manager is now occupying the duty without any authority. Why can't NEA do something about it? The Commission on Appointments cannot remove that guy. But the DOE, through the NEA, can do it. So that is the law. He's unauthorized. He's an interloper. The corruptions have been established. Bumili ng sasakyan utilizing the omnibus credit with a certain bank. In my resolution 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I'm trying to subpoena even the bank's documents to prove that the reason that the supplier was not paid last March, April, and May because the fund was utilized to campaign for that defeated candidate. These are all established, Mr. Secretary. So, this is the question of resolve on your part. So that ako, bilang isa maniniwala na talagang yung undertaking and commitment that you have just given to me, talagang magagampanan natin. So I give you until Friday, Mr. Secretary, to please correct the anomaly in Beneco. And the people in Benguet might be hearing our hearing today. And you will be making them very, very happy. Can you commit, Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, as also committed by the NEA administrator, we will address this particular issue.
So, are we committed that he will be removed on Friday?
As with law, yes, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Si Loren.
Madam Chair, I'm now finished with the commitment of the DOJ Secretary that
Morning.
in accordance with law, which I think it's all in his side,
As promised.
he's going to remove the
I'm looking at you and I'm listening. Okay.
the DOJ Secretary has just made a commitment that with the laws on his side, he's now committing to remove the other authorized general manager in Beneco, in Benguet, to remove him, and it's being given until Friday to do that, Madam Secretary. And I thank him for this firm resolve. And if he does that on Friday, all the undertakings and commitment that he has just given before us, I think will all be accomplished. And we congratulate him for doing that, Madam Chair. Salamat po, Mr. Secretary, and you just make the Filipino people, particularly the consumers of electricity, very, very happy, and they look forward to your help, and they will be watching you. Thank you very much. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Congressman Marcoleta. Secretary, any response, sir?
Definitely, Madam Chair, we want to commit with our that department to work with you and the Congress in realizing the goals and objectives of the IPIRA and working at solutions for those that still need to be revisited.
So the commitment for the request in that specific cooperative is noted and action will be taken. And all the other issues that were raised in the past 3 hearings are also noted, and we will work together with your team to be able to comply with those commitments, not for parochial interests, but for country. Thank you, sir. There are other members of the commission who wish to propound questions, and I think it is a turn of Senator J.V. Ejercito.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. I'd just like to ask a few questions because I think this is a clear and present danger that is facing not only our country but the world. And I know that this issue is very close to our chair and our Senate President, who are environment warriors. The issue of global warming. We know for a fact that one of the biggest contributors that causes global warming is the greenhouse effect, and one of the biggest contributors of the greenhouse effect is the emissions coming from the coal plants. So just like to know what your position is, because during the UN Climate Change Conference, our country was also committed, as along with other countries, that we will gradually reduce our dependence on coal. Out of 130 countries, Madam Chair, the Philippines ranked 28th in the consumption of coal. We are still so much dependent on coal, while other countries are veering away already from its use. So, Mr. Secretary, under your leadership, what is the policy and thrust of government regarding the use of coal or the shift to other cleaner source of energy? Because two things, we want to minimize effect on global warming kasi po ngayon, heat waves, melting glaciers, droughts, flooding in areas that don't flood, doon po sa mga areas na dapat umuulan, hindi na umuulan, sa mga areas na hindi binabagyo, bumabagyo na po. So it's really a clear and present danger facing the world. So what is the direction of our dear Secretary towards the shift or veering away from dependence on coal towards cleaner energy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This concern of yours, Mr. Senator, is something that we share, and therefore we are committed to meet the targets of 35% of renewable energy by 2030 and 50% by 2040. Thank you.
I know that our Senate President and our Chair is also an advocate of renewable energies. I also advocate renewable energies, but we know for a fact that renewable energy is not baseload energy. No, it's intermittent. So for us to industrialize and for us to develop, you have a very important role to play, Mr. Secretary. Aside from infrastructure development, we have to have reliable source of energy and cheap cost of energy. So what do you think, what would be partner to renewable energy as our baseload energy sources?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as a transition fuel, Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, natural gas is important, and that's why we have placed a priority on the development of Malampaya and other sources. And in the meantime, we have to accommodate imported liquefied natural gas in order to make up for the decline. So this will help, together with energy storage systems like batteries, for us to utilize the variable renewable energy.
And likewise, recently during the APEC, President Bongbong Marcos met with the French President Emmanuel Macron, and they discussed, they had a meeting and discussed the possibility of partnerships with on a possible partnership on nuclear energy. So when the president speaks, I assume that will be already the policy of the administration. So what will be, what is the direction of the Department of Energy?
Mr. Senator, definitely we agree with the instructions of the president are clear. Thank you.
Of course, so it is being reconsidered, Mr. Secretary.
Definitely, Mr. Senator.
But of course, just a reminder, of course, our priority is safety. That is the concern of most of us. We are open because we need to find cheap sources of energy for us to be able to catch up with our ASEAN neighbors. So again, just a reminder, Madam Chair, before I wrap up, two things that are very important in our country for our economy to be able to catch up with our neighbors: infrastructure and the low cost of energy, low but safe sources of energy. That's all.
Please
Madam Chair,
proceed.
Madam Chair, distinguished colleagues and everyone in attendance, I would like to convey my sincere support for the ad interim appointment of Secretary Rafael Lotilla as Secretary of the Department of Energy. Having previously served as the Secretary of the same department, I have no doubt as to the capability of Secretary Lutilla for this post, having been lauded by many of his for his able leadership during his tenure in the DOE, and for more and more for steering the country's energy landscape towards the right direction amid the many challenges he faced during his time. Ako po'y naniniwala muli na sa inyong kakayahan na pamunuan ng husto ang departamentong ito as you take this new role. Again, I appeal to you to look after the welfare of our countrymen, lalong-lalo po sa panahon ngayon nagtataasan ang presyo ng langis, hindi lang sa ating bansa, pati po sa buong mundo. At sa kakaikot ko talaga, daming reklamo po about brownout. Yun po, sana po matugunan nyo to sa Palawan, sa Pagadian, sa iba't ibang parte ng bansa. Tulungan po natin dahil talagang apektado rito yung mga kababayan nating mahihirap na walang matakbuhan, mga helpless, mga hopeless. Mr. Secretary, I also ask you to continue to build on the momentum of the previous administration. Sa katunayan nga po ay nung nakarang administrasyon, the government was able to secure enough supply of electricity para maiwasan nga po itong mga power interruption na ating nararanasan. The Duterte administration, through the efforts of our fellow legislators in the 18th Congress, has also managed to extend to 30 years yung free power subsidy for poor families and increase the rural electrification rate from 90.7 in 2016 to 94.5 in 2021. Sana po'y palakasin pa natin ang mga programa at proyekto na makakatulong at makakapaganda pa po sa buhay ng bawat Pilipino. We need to do whatever it takes to find the solutions for our Filipino brothers and sisters, especially those who have less in life. Secretary Lutilla, full support po ako sa inyo. Maraming salamat at mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. And we will definitely work with you on the achieving those goals. Thank you.